Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beat On, joined by the fantasy master Lothario himself, Gray Albright. How's it going over there, Gray?
Hey, good man. What's going on? Chilling?
Yeah, man. We are in the dog days of summer, trying to chase down titles. I got a playoff league over at CBS that starts this week, so gearing up for that. I mean, we're into it, Gray.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. We are we're neck deep, bro. We're like Luke Skywalker in the garbage compactor. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I think I blew one. I think I lost one of my leagues. I was doing so well for like 4 months, but I might have lost it in the last 2 weeks. So that's not good. But yeah, another league I'm doing okay in. And that league actually pays money, so let's go. I'm pretty excited for Bowden Francis, Osvaldo Bido, and I'm like my pitching staffs are now like it's like, oh yeah, draft Freddie Peralta, but hope you get JP Sears. I mean, really, honestly, but I mean, it's like, do people check out in like June, July for fantasy football, and they don't realize, like, and then by the time March comes around again, they're like completely forgotten that like pitching was such a mess. Every year pitching is so bad. It's just like, oh my God. Like I don't have Corbin Burns anywhere, but even he got rocked this past week. Like no one is safe, man. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it's good to see you.
yeah. I mean, but people will turn that around and say that's why you pay for it, Gray, so you can get, somebody you can count on, even though you may or may not be able to count on them.
I know. I was talking to the guy who is in the lead for the overall for the draft champions. Like he's in first place, and he's sort of coasting in first. I don't want to jinx him, but he's doing really well. And he actually drafted in October of last year, which is like, I feel like he should get like 110% of the prize winnings because it's really impressive if you're able to draft that early. And he was. I mean, his team, he was able to somehow get Bobby Witt in the first round and then Ohtani in the second round. And
That's just a bad league.
yeah. I mean, yeah. That's kind of true. And I think he got Tariq Skubal in the fifth round. So it's like,
Yeah, this
like
is just a bad league. I mean, can I get in this league next year?
I know, but that's also what I was kind of thinking too, because it's like, if you think about like those overalls, like a lot of it, like I know in one league where I'm doing really well, I feel like it's a lot easier for me to get guys off of waivers. I know some of the people who are listening to this podcast are actually in that league, so they're right now they're kicking the wall or something. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not really happy by me saying that, but it is true that like I feel like in that league I'm able to get guys off of waivers that I feel like I can't get in other leagues. Like in my main event league, right? Like there's guys that I get a week before, and then in this other league that I'm talking about where I'm in first place, like I'm able to get guys like the week after, like the week after, and it's like you shouldn't be able to do that. that is like an issue. So I do think, I don't know, man. I do think there is a little something to the fact, like, if your league is a little bit weaker, you are in a little bit of better shape, right? I mean, in those leagues, at least, in those
Rounds.
yeah, I guess that's kind of true for any league, but I mean, in those overall leagues, like I look at, like I was saying, like that guy's team, I'm like, I mean, he did draft in October, so that is impressive, but
yeah.
I mean, Scooble in the 5th round, it's like, wow. And like he got deals on so many people. Like it's like top to bottom, his team is just rock solid. So I'd kind of be surprised if he gives up that first overall, but yeah. Anyway, we should let's start talking about this week's fantasy stuff.
Yeah, I was going to talk about our RCL, where I've maybe single-handedly handed you at least second right now, and maybe first. But in my defense, I did not expect to have Kyle Tucker out for this long. They were like, he's going to be back right after the All-Star break, and it's now been like a month and a half after the All-Star break, and he's still not back. So was planning on having him back. And also, I haven't lost any points in any of the categories I would have. I haven't lost any points. You're just gaining them on other people.
So, yeah. But I also, I mean, I feel like, yeah, Aaron Judge obviously did not hurt, right?
No.
And then what was the other guy you gave me?
We traded some pitching, and I traded you a starter for another reliever.
Right. Who was the starter though? Was it? I forget.
It was somebody pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
definitely. Reagans? I think it was Reagans.
Cole Reagans, right. So, yeah, I mean, Cole Reagans doesn't hurt, right? But in that league, in our RCL league specifically, I had so many innings to gain that I've also been streaming like crazy. So, I mean, Cole Reagans hasn't hurt, but I've also, like, in the past week, I streamed, like, the Severino complete game, with the Mets complete game on, I think it was Saturday. I think Mania maybe before that. I've been streaming like crazy in that league. So, I mean, Reagans hasn't hurt, but I think I'm starting 3 guys on Monday. Like I had so many win points and strikeout points to gain that I kind of knew I was going to gain points. I still haven't reached first though. I got my foot on the gas though. I'm trying to catch Sun. He's good in 12-team mixed leagues. He's a tough competitor.
It's hard to chase him down. I've had that same experience a few times, and it's always difficult because he is as good at turning a roster as anybody in our game. So yeah, it's definitely have to be on it.
Like the funny thing is with Sun, he does the exact opposite of me, where like he drafts really heavy on pitching. He drafts like high pitching, and then he piecemeals his hitting because there's so many guys on waivers in a 12-team mixed league. I'm assuming this is his reasoning. And he doesn't really stream pitching as much. Where I do the opposite.
Yeah, I do too.
We sort of, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's kind of 6 of one, a half a dozen of another. Like it's not impossible to do what he's doing, obviously, with pitching, but it does. I feel like personally, like it does. I think open you up for more, risk because, like, I mean, it's worked out for him. The pitching he has drafted, I don't know who he has. He probably has Scooble. I don't know the other pitchers, but yeah, I mean, it is kind of 6-1, a half a dozen another if you know what you're doing when it comes to drafting, and he drafts well.
Yeah, especially in a shallower league like the RCLs are, you can definitely grab guys as people are being let go. It is what it is. I thought the elite closers, adding a bunch of those to my roster would also help my ERA and my WHIP. Those have gone in the opposite direction since adding elite closers. So, what can you do? Let's move on to some baseball talk, Ray, and stop complaining about my poor trade making, which again, by the way, I still believe was my best chance of winning. Just didn't happen. Prospects called up. Junior Caminero, he leads the group. Number 5 on Itch's prospect rankings overall. 20 years old at AAA this year. He had 53 games. 13 home runs, 1 stolen base. He's hitting 276, 331, 498, 21% K rate, 6.8% walk rate. I mean, he missed a little bit of time off the start of the season, and then ever since he's come back, he's been hitting. What do you think about Junior Caminero, who already has 2 stolen bases in 5 games at the MLB level?
Yeah, well, I have a couple thoughts. So my first big picture one is I'm kind of surprised that the Rays called him up, because I think it was like 2 weeks and they would have got an extra year out of him. So
Yeah, I mean, September.
Yeah, because he was called up last year. So his clock is going to start early, which, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for fantasy. I'm just kind of shocked that they did it, because like, what's 2 weeks for them, really? Like, because next year he won't be eligible for the Rookie of the Year. So he won't be able to, like, if he were to win it, well, he's not even eligible for it. But if he were to win it, if he were eligible and he won it, they would have got an extra draft pick. So there's a lot of things that's like, it's kind of surprising, because like, I mean, I think MLB has instituted a lot of good rules in order to get prospects up to start the year, but they still haven't really figured out how to avoid people like with service time issues in the middle to end of the year. Like, guys are still, like, teams are still dragging their feet on certain times of the year. Maybe not as much in April, but definitely later. Anyway, I think with Caminero, I feel like he's a pickup in every league, right? Like, he looks like he is ready to go at 20 years old too. Oh, he's 21 now, but still at 21 years old, to have the kind of plate discipline he has at 22% strikeout rate is just, well, 23 as of the recording of this, but 22.7. Anyway, but his walk rate, over 18%. It's a small sample size. It's only 5 games in the majors, but still, like, that is crazy. Like, we see guys come up, and even guys who have like, 24, 25% strikeout rates in the minors, they come up and they'll be pushing like 28, 29 in the majors. Like, it's just natural to have a guy strike out more in the majors than in the minors. And he's been the absolute opposite, which is just wild. Like, that is really impressive. Like, I know a lot of listeners aren't necessarily in on-base percentage leagues, but even without that, I mean, just looking at that, knowing how quality the contact is and how good the eye is, like, that is leading me to believe like he could really be. I don't know if he's necessarily going to break it. Like, he's still, like I said, 21. So I don't know if he's going to be like necessarily the huge breakout for next year, but man, it's going to be hard not to be drafting him everywhere, right? Like, it's going to be difficult to hold back and not like jump the gun on grabbing him like a round or two before his ADP next year, because like, he looks like he could potentially be the real deal as soon as next year. So, what that means is maybe 27 homers, 12 steals, 275 plus average. Like, and that's really good. Like, that for a for a third baseman, that's like top 5 third baseman type numbers if he's sitting in the middle of the order. And that's at 21 years old. That's crazy. It's like crazy, man. He is so talented. I'm kind of interested in seeing like what he does the rest of this year. I mean, for this year, like I said, he's a pickup in every league. What you get in in a spare, like, 35 games this year, it's hard to say. It's like, because of a small sample size, you might get 3 homers and 7 steals and a 300 average, or you might get no power and a couple steals, and maybe he randomly slumps because of like bad luck or something. Like, it's hard to say with only so many not that many games left. So I would grab him though because he's really crazy talented. He's proven to me that he could potentially be a top, I don't know, 50 overall player next year, potentially. I think his ADP is going to be way after that too. It depends on the leagues and it depends on when you draft. Like I could see him, like we were talking in the opening about someone who drafted in October. I could see drafting in October and getting him at like 120 overall potentially. And then by the time April comes rolling around, he might be going within, if he has a great spring training, he could be going within the top 75 to 50 overall next year.
Yeah, he could, and it also depends how he finishes out the season. If he finishes hitting 300 and he steals a bunch of bases and hits some home runs, that's gonna change how he's viewed going into next year. I guess in regards to his service time, I don't think he's gonna get to reach the level where he wouldn't be a rookie next year. So maybe it's just them basically giving him the max amount of time at the major league level without passing rookie sets.
Well,
so
I
said try for it next year.
I read somewhere that it's because of service time, not necessarily.
Yeah, they're going to lose service time, but not the rookie of the year piece.
Oh, I believe it's the rookie of the year piece too, because he's going to go over the amount of games up in the majors, unless he
shouldn't.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe not. Maybe I might be wrong.
September. September doesn't count towards those days. So he only has, 11 more days, 12 more days to make games that count for.
Yeah, I could be wrong on that. Maybe.
Okay. Yep. We're just going to assume you are and move on. We're going to talk about Jasson Dominguez real quick. He was called up, but then he was optioned back down today. So not a whole lot here, but with the call up, it does feel like he may get a look either in September or maybe right before September, so they get him onto the playoff roster. There's no reason they couldn't give him Verdugo a spot or stop giving Stanton everyday playing time or any number of things they could do to get on the roster. I guess when he does get called up, Gray, is this an immediate ad in the same way that Caminero's an immediate ad, or is he somewhere below that?
Well, I guess it depends on playing time. So with Dominguez, see the Yankees, unfortunately, like I said with Caminero, I would prefer for fantasy and for Dominguez's sake, I prefer him to be up and playing. But I also kind of agree with what the Yankees are doing. If I'm in the Yankees position, they have to wait 2 weeks in order to bring up, Dominguez. And then at that point they could bring him up and, play him or whatever. So I agree with what the Yankees are doing. I think MLB should, change the rules so they're not allowed to do that. But, as long as it's there, they're going to do it. So with that said, I really don't see I don't see Aaron Boone suddenly being like, unless there's there could be an injury between now and when Dominguez is recalled. But if there's no injury, I don't see Boone suddenly being like, yeah, I'm never going to play Verdugo or Stanton again. It's just not going to happen. So, he could platoon potentially Dominguez. I definitely imagine he will, to a certain extent, platoon in and out and get, enough at bats in probably 12-team mixed leagues or deeper. I could see him getting enough at bats in order to be worthwhile in in a 12-team league or deeper. Sure, in a 12-team mixed league, yeah, definitely. I like him. I think he's he's probably the top. Him or Caminero are probably 1-2, 1A, 1B for rookie of the year potentially next year. I would say, Dominguez, I guess I actually I don't know what Verdugo's contract is. I think he's another year if I'm remembering correctly. But they've got to find a place to play Dominguez from day one of next year, I would imagine. So I would say. And by the way, I think Dominguez should be playing over Verdugo as of like right now. Like, actually Verdugo's contract is up. So yeah, Verdugo's gone. Dominguez plays from day one next year, which I mean, Dominguez is still super young. So and he was injured. So really the only thing I think the only thing really we're missing from Dominguez this year is probably like maybe 6 weeks of playing time in the majors that he's not getting. So it's like, so they're kind of dragging their heels on him for like 6 weeks. So he's still going to be, great next year in that park too, even if Juan Soto doesn't come back, which I think he's probably going to come back. The Yankees always have a good lineup with Dominguez in the middle of it, or even sitting at the top of it. He's going to be another one who's like, it's going to be tough to not jump the gun on like picking up Dominguez in drafts earlier than his ADP at least. So yeah, I like him. I don't really know like how much we're like in weekly leagues. I feel like the name Dominguez is going to conjure more positivity for fantasy than he's probably worth. I don't know if he's going to be really worth it in weekly leagues if he's not playing every single day, which I really don't see where he plays every single day. I mean, maybe I don't know. It's like you'd have to without an injury. You'd have to assume that Boone is just going to like suddenly bench Verdugo, which doesn't really make any sense. I mean, he's been playing him for 5 months. Why now, right? I mean, maybe, but it's just like I feel like you're just being like I don't know. It feels like you're just being overly optimistic if you think that's going to happen. But yeah, I do like Dominguez when he comes back just to see what happens and to see if he can get into like a hot September. But yeah, I don't have I have more love right now for Junior Caminero than I do for Dominguez. Even if Dominguez were up, I just don't see the playing time necessarily there for him.
Yeah, and I think generally, general consensus is that Caminero is a better prospect. Anyways, I'm sure there are some, Yankees fans out there who won't like hearing that, but I do believe that is widely thought and ranked as such. So, I mean, I guess I'm more optimistic that, if this is strictly service time related, they call him up at August 30th to get him, again, on the playoff rosters, or they call him up in September and IL somebody to sneak his way on the roster. Either way, I feel like when he's up, he's like, they're going to let him play. It feels dumb that they wouldn't let him play when he gets called up. We're not talking about the Rockies. Dominguez is a top prospect. They called up Volpe, and part of it was they didn't have anybody to play that position, but like they let Volpe take it for a full season, and he was, defensively he was good, but he was not good offensively, and then just let him learn and grow into it. I don't think there's as much love for Verdugo as maybe you think there is. Again, he's gone after this year. There's almost no way they're bringing him back unless Soto completely says he's not coming back, I think he's just going where the money is. I don't think he really cares where he plays. He just wants to be paid a ridiculous amount, which he should. But I really believe between Verdugo, Stanton, there's a way to get him in the lineup every day. You move Judge over to DH, give him some days in there. Slide Verdugo out to center, or Dominguez out to center. So I think there's a number of ways that this is going to kind of piece itself together. I guess maybe the harder part is not necessarily for Verdugo, but like when Jazz comes back, then I could see where it's like, where does he play every day? Because right now it felt like they had the opportunity to let him play like every single day if they really wanted to, because Jazz is out. They have an outfield spot open right now.
Well, Jazz has been
kind
playing
of.
third for them.
I know, but he always has the outfield eligibility. I'm thinking more next year as we're looking to build the roster for them.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, yeah, I mean, there's going to be some turnover, so we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Dominguez, though, like, I mean, like I said, I think from day one he's in the lineup for next year. I think he would have been in the lineup from day. He just had unfortunately, he had Tommy John surgery, so unfortunately, he had surgery and needed the extra rehab time. So he was, Verdugo was definitely like, they signed him as a placeholder. So they don't have any real allegiance to Verdugo, but they have been playing Verdugo like every day. Like, it's not like Verdugo has been, really platooning much, even though he's really sucks.
I think that's more of the lack of options at this current moment. Rizzo's out, Chisholm's out.
I mean, I would have.
They just don't have a whole lot to move around right now.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. We've been talking about a guy who's not even in the majors currently. So let's talk about a guy who is in the majors and went for some fab dollars, or at least whatever remaining fab dollars after Caminero, and that is Jace Jung, number 6 on Itch's Tigers prospect list. 91 games this year in AAA. He has 14 home runs, 2 stolen bases, hit 257, 377, 454. I feel like Jace Jung has made his way up, prospect ranking lists since that initial ranking from Itch. So there's a little bit more hype than maybe that ranking portrays. But I mean, what are you thinking in regards to Jace Jung?
So he looks to me like, I'm kind of surprised that he was highly touted. I don't even know necessarily if it was just Itch. He was, highly touted in the prospect world, just in general. I believe. I guess he makes good contact, so there is that, and he has some power. He has actually really good power, and it's it's an infield spot. Maybe defense is also helping his prospect grades a little bit. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure, because if you look at his minor league numbers, man, they seem fine. I don't know. So many of these Tiger rookie prospects have burned me from like the last 2+ years, going back to like Torkelson. And then, I mean, Carpenter's been fine. Riley Green's been fine. I don't know. I guess I'm being too harsh on them, or Colt Keith. There's just so many of these guys who hit like, maybe 24 to 27 homers with no real speed, probably 255, 260 average, which is fine. I mean, it's fine. It's not bad. It kind of feels a little bit like a whole team of Heimer Candelarios to me, a little bit. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Jace Jung, I guess, like, I'm not going to write him off after, him just being up for like a weekend. So, there might be something here. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe his power will show itself. It's like Comerica, Detroit Stadium, Tiger Stadium is terrible. It's not good for power. It's not good in general. So it doesn't really help these guys. And Jung doesn't seem like he has any real speed. If his minor league numbers are, it's like the prospect grades say he has no speed. He hasn't really shown any speed in the minors, other than the occasional steal, which is probably just like a busted hit and run here and there. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe you get, so for the rest of this season, you're probably looking at a guy who potentially could hit like a handful of homers and maybe 260, 270 if it depends on Babbitt a little bit with such a small sample size, but maybe he gets a handful of homers and we see what we'll see moving forward what he can do. But I don't know, like if you're looking at him for like next year, he's going to be complete. I mean, he's going to be like basically free in drafts, I would assume, which is, there might be something there. It might be worthwhile, but man, even like, Kerry Carpenter, who I feel like is probably a success as far as the Tigers are concerned, right? I mean, his numbers are like, he's like a 20 homer hitter, a 20 homers, 275 hitter. Like, okay, it's fine. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's also kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Carpenter is the expected outcome was a lot lower. So him being a 20 home run, 280, 270 bat is really nice for somebody they got, in the 19th round. Obviously, Jung comes with a little bit more pedigree. He was a first round pick. So there was a little bit more expectations there. But I'm with you. Like the numbers aren't overly impressive. It's a power first bat, which, sometimes has trouble adjusting at the major league level, or even if they do adjust, it's like to reach our levels for, effective power, it needs to be kind of 25 plus. Otherwise it just falls into the group of streaming bats. And right now that may be where he kind of slides into. I'd pick him up and see if he can kind of hit the ground running, but I don't know that I'm starting him in leagues right now, unless, you're just kind of throwing hope into the wind right now and hoping to hit something big.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. In a like if if you're in a 15-team mixed league and you lost like Christian Walker or something, and you're trying to figure out your corner spot, and you want to take a flyer on a guy, that sounds fine. I would say probably in most leagues you're like, I don't know, you're like a 12-team mixed league or shallower. It's like, I mean, if there's a short scheduled day and you want to give him you want to take a flyer and see what happens, sure. But I feel like there's going to be better options on waivers in most 12-team mixed leagues and shallower.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially this time of year where you're trying to grab, the hot bat and really make up distance. I don't know that there's time to wait on somebody to come around. But again, if you have the roster spot and it's on your bench, I'd definitely take a look at that.
The guy, the other guy the Tigers called up, I think is more interesting. But go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah. So the next guy is the Tigers' second call up, which is Trey Sweeney. He was part of the Jack Flaherty trade. He had 96 games with the Dodgers where he had 13 home runs, 16 stolen bases, hit 254. 334, 427 with a 26.8% K rate and a 10% walk rate. He's had 11 games with the Tigers AAA system where he has 2 home runs, 4 stolen bases, and he's hit 381. As you mentioned, you might be more interested here for our purposes from fantasy because he does have some speed. Speed always plays a little bit, and not for nothing, if you're just looking at what have they been doing recently, like Trey Sweeney, as I just read you, has been hitting 381 since joining the Tigers organization. Obviously small sample size, but that matters when you're coming up. Is just how well are you seeing the ball currently? As we mentioned with Jace Jung's numbers, they were fine, but they weren't like Chris Bryant being held back numbers. You're not hitting 350 and a home run every other game type of thing.
Right. Yeah, no, completely. Yeah, I think, Trey Sweeney probably in the big picture is less valuable for fantasy than Jace Jung. Probably. I mean, it depends, but in the from now until the end of the season, if you're looking at a guy who could potentially get 5 categories, Trey Sweeney's that guy, right? So he's got power, speed, probably not going to hit for a good average, but in a small sample size, that may not matter, or it may, there's huge swings in Babbitt for like 1 month worth of playing time. So if he gets, if he's got speed and he gets lucky on Babbitt, maybe he hits like 250, 260 in a small sample size, and he chucks in a few homers and some steals. It's potentially could happen. His numbers to throw out a guy who is the second coming of Mike Trout, like his numbers versus Tyler Fitzgerald's numbers in the minor leagues. I mean, it's not like Tyler Fitzgerald came up and everyone was like, oh my God, like this guy, you have to get him, So, and we see where power and speed could potentially play, a pivotal role. And Trey Sweeney's got power and speed. So I don't know. I mean, worse things than a flyer on a guy with power and speed. I would do that before the Jace Jung flyer, unless there's a position eligibility requirement where like you need a corner man, then, you do what you got to do. But, if you're looking at a utility guy and you're looking for a flyer, I like Trey Sweeney better than Jace Jung.
Yeah, I think so. If you're just looking for the upside flyer at this point, maybe long-term Jung is the guy, but at least for now, I think Trey Sweeney provides that upside. So I'm with you, even if the prospect ranks may not agree with us. Moving over to Colorado, our favorite place for rookies to get called up, Gray. They called up a couple people, one of them being Jordan Beck, who was number 2 on Itch's Rockies rankings. 39 games in AAA, has 8 home runs, 6 stolen bases. He's hitting 319, 402, and 558. Obviously missed some time this year. What do you think about Jordan Beck?
Who else did they call up?
They also called up Drew Romo. He was number 8 on the Rockies ranks. He had 85 games in AAA this year, 14 home runs, 3 stolen bases. It hit 297, 339.
That wasn't who I was trying to get you to say. Who else did they call up?
I don't know who else they called up, Gray.
It's some guy called Nolan Jones. Do we know?
Well, he wasn't called up. He was reinstated, but
oh, sorry. Oh, my bad, Mr. Semantics.
I'm sorry that I have technical terms and you just throw stuff around, Gray. It's my bad.
Actually the Rockies did one of the more hilarious moves this weekend. Besides recalling Nolan Jones and then not playing him. They recalled Nolan Jones to bench him. But besides that, they actually did a much funnier move this weekend. They released Elias Diaz, their 270 hitting catcher. I'm sorry. The Rockies are really dumb. So Elias Diaz was hitting 270. He had the same OPS plus as he did last year when he was an all-star. He was basically the same outside of a few random home runs. And they released him so they could play the soon-to-be 35-year-old Jacob Stallings. It's just like, what are they doing, man? The Rockies are legitimately dumb. Like, they are absolutely like the White Sox. The White Sox they are incompetent. The Rockies are actually dumb. It's a fine line. It's potentially the difference between a recall and a call up, one might say. But it's really like the Rockies are quite stupid. Anyway, Jordan Beck was recalled. I don't know. I mean, he kind of looks a lot like Trey Sweeney. I was going to say Trey Sweeney. Hey, Elma Fudd. Jordan Beck looks like Trey Sweeney a little bit. Like, he's got power and speed. I don't know if he's going to hit for a decent average. It doesn't look like he is, but you never know. Coors Field could help with the BABIP a little bit. I'm fine with the flyer on Jordan Beck. I feel like, once guys are called up, like, at this point, it's like, are you going with the random outfielder? Like, if Jake McCarthy is available, or are you taking a flyer on Jordan Beck? You're going with the established vet who has actually been hot, right? So it's like, even, looking at just even the Rockies, if Nolan Jones were to start hitting, I like him better than Jordan Beck. But it depends on who gets hot, really. I don't really find Jordan Beck to me looks like probably like maybe 15 team mixed league or deeper if you're really struggling. Likely NL only at best until we see something. But if he's playing and he's actually hitting, then maybe maybe 15 team mixed league. But for now, I think NL only. Nolan Jones, he could potentially be like an any league pickup. I don't know if he's ever going to play though. I don't know really what the Rockies are doing with him. Like Nolan Jones was in the minors for, a good, like he was still striking out too much in the minors. Like I think there's an issue where I feel like there might be a contact issue with Nolan Jones. Not even really might. I mean, there is a contact issue with Nolan Jones. So he had, one of the great seasons last year in a limited time. Speaking of Tyler Fitzgerald, Nolan Jones had the Tyler Fitzgerald year of last year. But if he can't make contact on a regular basis, I wouldn't pick up Nolan Jones in any league either, outside of course, like NL only. But I wouldn't pick up Nolan Jones in any league until we saw something. And, his numbers in the minors don't really tell me like there's anything really here that we should be excited about. Like he wasn't making good contact in AAA this year. It was, pretty bad actually. So I don't know. I've cooled on Nolan Jones a lot, which, is obvious because of, the year he's having. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not crazy about any of these Rockies guys, really, unless they start hitting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not been good. It feels like there's just a gap in Nolan Jones' swing, and it's really just he's getting pounded inside, like on those areas, which is down and in and down and away. He just can't get to him. He's also real bad up and away. So he's just not getting anything middle and up in, and that's where he did a lot of damage last year. I don't know. It feels like something they can fix eventually, but I don't know for this year. If they're not starting him after calling him up, I don't know how much confidence we can really have in him going forward. So it's gonna be an issue with Nolan Jones. I mean, we'll see. We know he has the power speed to do it. As you mentioned, it wasn't like, again, in the minor leagues, he was absolutely raking. He was hitting 268 with a 32% K rate. So not exactly numbers you'd expect to see from somebody who was, a top 20 outfielder last year for our game, and maybe even better than that. So we'll see what happens with him if he can kind of get it turned around. But certainly one of the bigger misses, I think, of the year for, the entire fantasy industry as a whole, really. I think everybody kind of missed on him, other than, I guess, if you're just a heavy K rate guy, you're like, hey, he struck out a lot, so I'm not going to draft him. But everything else looked great. Not hitting the ball hard anymore. It's sad. Let's move over to some players who have been reinstated, Gray. For the proper terminology here. Triston Casas is reinstated. He has 24 games this year with 6 home runs. He was hitting 253, 343, 494. Last year in 132 games, he had 24 home runs at 263, 367, 490. He is coming back, and there was a lot of excitement about him preseason. Are you still really excited about him? And like, what are you thinking in regards to picking him up? I assume you're grabbing him across the board, but also, are you?
Absolutely grabbing him across the board. My big issue with him, and it's not even really like it's nothing he can do. I think he's a star. Like I think he's probably like not not Freeman, because Freeman doesn't have as much power. Like maybe Arenado when he was when Arenado was good, but like yeah, I guess Arenado's a decent comparison because he has no speed. Obviously, the wrong position, but like Casas, I think is a star. Like I think he is a 35 265 hitter, 35 homers, 265 hitter with no speed, but good runs and RBIs, middle of the Red Sox lineup. Like I really like Casas a lot. My big issue with him right now is like he said that when he swings, it feels like someone's stabbing him. So unless the Red Sox secretly traded for Tommy Pham, I don't know, man. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good when it feels like someone's stabbing you when you're swinging the bat. So I really hope like the off season of rest can fix this for him, because this sounds really scary for like future years. Like I'm concerned now about like next year, what happens when we get to like May, June, and he swings too hard and this happens again. Like, is this a recurring thing, or is this like one and done? And or is he going to feel this for the rest of his career when he's swinging the bat? Like, I don't know, man. I'm actually really kind of concerned about this injury. This does not sound good. So, as far as him for right now, I'm really kind of shocked that he played, 3 games in a row and had hits in each game because of, how it sounds like he's in pain. So, good on him for playing, I guess, playing through the pain. I don't know. But yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's a top 10 easy first baseman, maybe top 5 if he's healthy. So yeah, I'm a fan.
All right, so I had some names to throw out here. It sounds like I can ignore some of them, but would you start him immediately over Cody Bellinger?
No, you're in a crazy shallow league though if you're deciding between Cody Bellinger and him. I think I don't think Cody Bellinger or Casas are really benchable. So starting over him, if I had to re-rank them, I would say Cody Bellinger is above Casas, but you're starting both of them in every league, I would hope.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move over. You have been getting questions about Tommy Edman as he is returning.
A lot of questions.
The Dodgers have made
I didn't even realize that Tommy Edman was this interesting to people. But yes, go ahead. Sorry, continue.
Yes. So apparently we have to talk about him. Ahmed Rosario was waived by the Dodgers, claimed by the Reds. I guess we can talk about that as a side piece. And then while we're on the Dodgers, they have activated Walker Buehler and Bobby Miller, so we will touch on them at the end. But let's start with the Ed Man of the hour, Tommy Edman. What do you think, Gary? Does he need to be added across every league? Where does he kind of slot in for you amongst second basemen or middle infielders? What are you thinking?
So I, honestly, for the rest of the season, if he's playing, I'm fine with him. Like I don't know. Like I would guess that he platoons, right? Like, and he's got he's able to play a lot of positions. So he's kind of like, for them, it's like they have a new Chris Taylor to play around with. Well, Chris Taylor's injured. That's the only reason why he's not there. But Dave Roberts loves these guys like Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, and Tommy Edman. It's like, keep your Otanis and Betts. We'll just play with all the crazy position eligibility guys. That's all the Dodgers do. Somehow, even Gavin Lux has outfield eligibility in my leagues, which I guess he was playing that last year. I don't know. Anyway, I don't really like Tommy Edman, to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of his. As far as fantasy goes, he makes super weak contact. Like it's not, and his, he's not necessarily a spring chicken. So his his steals are, have fallen. But in the 5 weeks, the 5+ weeks we have left, if he's playing every day, sure. Yeah. I mean, maybe he does something. I'm imagining he's going to be hitting at the bottom of the Dodgers lineup, which isn't really good. I mean, the top of the Dodgers lineup is solid, assuming Freddie Freeman's finger's fine. But, Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Teoscar, great. And then it's, Will Smith too is good. But then it's like, Kevin Kiermaier's playing every day? What? Enrique Hernandez? Miguel Rojas? Huh? Yeah, so Tommy Edman probably slots in somewhere in that range, which is like, but maybe he gets into a couple homers and he steals some bags. I think in most leagues, what you're going to find on waivers is probably going to be better than Tommy Edman. But, if you want to take a flyer on him coming back and being hot, I guess it's fine. I'm not really seeing, like, people are really excited about him. I don't understand exactly why. I feel like his, he's kind of whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why there's so much push for him. I know he had a good season last year, a good couple seasons back to back, actually. As he finished out St. Louis, but coming back from major injury on a Dodgers team that doesn't really seem to play anybody other than like the big names every day. They have everybody on the IL that could eventually come back and challenge for playing time. So yeah, I mean, I like him. I think you can add him up for any number of struggling middle infielders that are maybe still in your lineup or still playing for you, and you kind of write it out. But I mean, I think he kind of just falls into, that big streaming middle infield group at this point, because there's not really that many that like have to be rostered in every single league, because it's been a little bit of a very odd year for middle infield where guys just get really hot and then they go into giant cold spells. So at any given point, middle infield looks very different on the player rater versus, like, say, season long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at this point, like, season long is good if you're looking to win a bet with someone. But I mean, right now, what do you care about season long for? It's all about like what a guy has done lately. Like, that's why even like I was joking before about like Bowden Francis and Osvaldo Bido, but it's like, if they're pitching well right now, who cares what Robbie Ray did 2 years ago? It doesn't matter. Or season long wise, it doesn't matter what a pitcher might have done in April or May if a guy is pitching well now in August. Or like you're saying with middle infielders, it's just like, yeah, look at what's going on now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wake up, people. All right.
I said we would talk about it real quick. Walker Buehler, Bobby Miller, they're back. Both struggled in their first outing. I guess Walker didn't necessarily. I don't know. They both struggled. I was going to try and give Walker a little credit because he only gave 1 earned, but 4 walks and 3 1/3, not exactly a traditional Walker Buehler start. Are you starting both these guys? Are you picking them up and holding? What are you thinking for the Dodgers pitchers?
I looked at Walker Buehler in one league, and I just left him on waivers, and that's I believe that was our RCL league, so that's a 12-team mixed league. So yeah, I can't, like I keep saying, what have you done for me lately? It's like, that's where we're at this point. And Walker Buehler and Bobby Miller, just not good. Bobby Miller, I honestly, I think the Dodgers might need to go the route of like the Orioles and just like, they're going the opposite. I think like they're just buying everyone. The Dodgers, that is. The Orioles. So the Orioles built up a hitting, an insane like prospect hitting crew, and then they went out and they got pitching, vet pitching. Which is also how the Cubs did it in 2016. And the Dodgers, I think, can't develop pitching, but I'm not sure if they can develop hitting either. So
I say hitting is the part that I'm more focused on. I feel like
I don't know.
pitching,
I don't know if the Dodgers
been
can
fine.
develop
Just a lot of injuries. Like
it's
they
funny
can't keep them
too.
healthy.
It's like the Dodgers in the same division as the Padres. Neither team can develop anything. They're just like, you know what? We're just going to trade for it or buy it in free agency because we cannot develop it for our lives. I don't know, man. I'm kind of like I'm at a loss with like Bobby Miller. I really liked coming into this year, but he looks busted. Like he looks like I don't know if he's coming back next year and going to be good. Like he could potentially like have like no value next year as well. Like I don't think this is a just like we can fix him in the offseason kind of thing. I think there's something really wrong here. And Walker Buehler, I have more hope for in the big picture, but for our purposes for this year, I'm not interested in Walker Buehler.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness to Bobby Miller, he was really good and then got injured. And since he's coming back, has lost some velocity. So, I'm not going to say he's not going to be anything or that I don't think he's being developed. And even to the Dodgers point, like their pitchers have been good. They can't stay on the mound. Like Gavin Stone was good. Bobby Miller's been good. Walker Buehler was good. Dustin May, when we saw him for like one game here or there before his injuries.
I think the bigger problem for the Dodgers is not that they're not good, but they overextend them to the point where they're just not able to continue to be good. Like they're just like they develop guys and then they overwork them, and they're like, there's a like up until like Buehler, Miller, Dustin May, Tony Gosling, Emmett Sheehan. I mean, it's like at a certain point you got to think like, okay, you got like 6 guys who needed Tommy John in the last like 18 months. We might have an issue. There might be a problem if you have, if you develop 6 pitchers and 6 of them need Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. There could be something where they're pushing them too hard. We've seen the Rays kind of have that same issue, and we know the Rays are that way. They tell them to throw their best pitch over and over again, regardless of what kind of damage it does to their arm.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe that's it. But again, it's really hard to predict and deal with injuries. I mean, they've brought in guys like Yamamoto. There's nothing wrong with him, and then he gets injured. I don't think that's the Dodgers' fault for using him in any way. I just think that's how it was. We'll see, but yeah, I don't think either of those guys are really going to be much for you as we come down the stretch. Miller's velocity's down. Buehler's stuff isn't moving like it needs to. So until we see those things return, I don't know that you really count on either of them. You mentioned we're coming down the stretch here, Gray. It's what you can do for me now. There's a lot of guys who, were great for the whole season, and now we're just falling off here when it matters the most. And I want to ask you about them quickly, Gray. And maybe we'll just play a new game. We're gonna name it after the gambler. You got to know when to hold him and know when to fold him, Gray.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that. That's the first time I understand.
Pick the reference from the 60s. Gray's got it. Okay, we figured out the era.
Stop it. Kenny Rogers is like 70s, 80s, man.
All right, 70s. Sorry, Gray. I'll give you 70s.
Was in We Are the World. Are you serious right now? I mean, this is like he's like one of the greats of the 80s. Come on.
Yeah, I mean that was only 40 years ago now, Gray. No big deal. Anyways, let's move on. Let's start with some middle infielders since we started with them. I mentioned them already. Bryson Stott, who was my guy. I have him everywhere. In August, Gray, he's hitting 133 with a homer and 2 stolen bases. Over the second half, he is hitting 221 with 2 homers and 3 stolen bases. Can you keep rolling him out, or do you need to go find you like a hot bat to put in? Or is it even worth, like, would you potentially drop him in like an RCL where, roster spots are very limited?
Yeah, he actually the thing about this is like he hit a homer on Sunday, I believe. So, and we're recording this on Monday. So it's like I always look at that like, oh, okay, he might be getting hot. So as soon as I say you can fold him, he's gonna have a great week this week. I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm still in on Stott. I haven't given up yet. We'll see what happens, but it helps to have him in a daily league because like they have platooned him a bunch. So if you can get him out of the lineup when he's not playing, that definitely helps it a little bit. But yeah, I'm holding for now.
Yeah, I'm holding as well, but the platoon is definitely hurting him. The speed and the counting numbers were kind of holding his value and without an average, and now it's starting to fall. So another couple of weeks of this, and I'm even really ready to fold him and just let him go. CJ Abrams is also been bad second half. 2 home runs, 7 stolen bases, which that part sounds fine, but he's hitting 165 gray. He is completely being propped up by the fact that he has stolen bases and there's nobody else in Washington, so he stays atop the lineup. I mean, Abrams was a guy that was a consensus top 20, top 30 guy at the break, and hasn't done it here.
Yeah, hold him.
Yeah, all right, I agree. I mean, he's still stealing bases. It's not as bleak as it is with Stott. He's still doing things for you. And then Trea Turner. Second half, 222, 2 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 222. He is really loving that 2 number. What did you,
especially when you say it twice? Yeah, I think Trea Turner's obviously a hold'em. I think the Philly fans just need to give him a standing ovation.
Just give him some support here, Gray, and
some love.
Move him along. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about some hot recently second baseman guys who have been doing well over the last 30 days or so. Would you bench any of those guys for Jackson Holiday?
Yeah, Holiday over Stott.
Okay. What about Nico Horner, who's kind of in the same group, but has at least been playing better?
Nico Horner's over Stott as well.
All right, and I'm just assuming that Xavier Edwards, all-world Xavier Edwards,
over Stott,
goes above everybody in this group.
Yeah, above Ohtani, Judge, and Bobby Witt. Yeah.
Hey, yeah. Xavier Edwards has just been killing it recently. Just absolutely great. Yeah. Let's move over to an outfielder, Gray, Lane Thomas. We talked about it when he got traded. 15 games in Cleveland. He has no home runs. He has 1 stolen base. He's hitting 120, Gray. I don't know how you can have him in your
I feel like, I feel like this is a fold'em for me. I feel like I even predicted this when he was traded because it sounds like he went to a better place, but in reality, it's not better because the Guardians are trying to win, and they ain't trying to let a guy steal bases who has no ability to steal bases, right? Like the Nationals, like I said this when he got traded, it was like the Nationals let him steal even though he was awful at it. He's an awful base runner. He has 12 caught stealings, which unless you have 60 steals, you shouldn't have 12 caught stealings,
right?
Ever. So I'm almost positive I said this when he got traded that Lane Thomas in Cleveland's just not good. I would fold him in most shallower mixed leagues. Yeah,
we talked about it on the podcast. I remember talking about it and just where the Guardians ranked in stolen bases compared to even if you looked at their roster has guys on it that can steal, and they just none of them really feel like they're at their top number for stolen bases. Because they go about it in a very logical manner, unlike the Nationals, who just wanted to create value for Lane Thomas and move him. So they did. Hopefully he can get back together. I don't think he's a 120 hitter. I don't think his hitting ability is gone, but he was only a 250 hitter anyway. So we're waiting, but I fold him for now. I mean, next season we can reevaluate, but for now, it looks real bad.
The only person I really trust to steal bases in Cleveland is Jose Ramirez, and that's because I feel like Jose Ramirez is like above the law in Cleveland. Like he can do whatever he wants to do because he's Jose Ramirez, which is, I mean, he's earned that right, so I'm not disparaging that. I just think he's the only one really who probably has a green light to just run whenever he wants to run.
Right. And he's shown he doesn't get thrown out as often. He has 3 caught stealings on 29 bags this year. I mean, we were talking about Lane Thomas has 12 on 29. So
it's awful.
4 times the amount of caught stealings for Lane Thomas. There's a reason that he doesn't just get to run wild. Yeah. Moving over to catchers, the top catchers are struggling. Adley Rutschman, everybody's favorite prospect catcher. Second half, he has a 1 home run. He's hitting 218, 292, 333. And Will Smith, he's hitting 1 home run. He has 1 home run, and he's hitting 154 in the second half. Would you dare drop the consensus, 2 of the top 3 catchers, Gray?
No, I wouldn't drop them. I wouldn't even look. I wouldn't have. First of all, I wouldn't have them on my team. I would not have drafted them. So that's on you for drafting them. But I would not drop them either. For one time, I mean, maybe I'm asking too much of people to give me some props. But one time, I would like someone to come into the comments, not to tell me that Adley Rutschman was a good draft pick where he was going, but rather to tell me I was right for not drafting him. That's what I would just like to be. I would like once to hear, yeah, you're right, I shouldn't have drafted him. Instead, people will draft him and then tell me, like, when Adley Rutschman is like going well, they'll come into the comments and be like, oh my God, he's going so good. I can't believe it. You're so stupid for not drafting him. And then when he gets like cold, like he's been for the last 6 weeks, crickets, no one, nothing. I hear nothing. Okay, yeah, right. I get you. You only come in when, I've said something stupid that you can point out rather than saying something smart. God. Ugh. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah. Can you name the top 2 catches of the last 30 days, Gray?
30 days?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would say William Contreras and Cal Raleigh. I don't know.
Contreras is number 3. Number 1 is Yainer Diaz, and number 2 is Joey Bart.
Yeah, there you go.
You can find catchers on your watch.
Right. I have been telling people to pick up Joey Bart for a couple weeks now,
like
but
But
yeah. I mean, just pick up a catcher.
Just pick up a hot catcher, guys. Do it. Stop rolling out shitty catchers. Speaking of crappy guys, Garrett Crochet. Woo! Second half Gray, 17 innings, 7.27 ERA, 1.79 WHIP, 5.88 FIP, 305 xFIP. So that sounds good if you don't know what xFIP does to people, nice. Which is basically remove every home run they're giving up. Gray, he's given up 6 home runs in 17 innings. He gave up 10 home runs in 107 innings in the first half. It's time to cut Garrett Crochet from all lineups, I think.
Yeah. xFIP is so funny if it's like if homers didn't exist, it's like, yeah, but I think they do. I think
they're really bad for you. Actually,
it's like, yeah. I mean, that's nice if a guy never allowed a homer, but
literally the worst outcome that can possibly happen.
What if they did? Yeah, it's like, okay, they should come up with a new stat, which is ERA minus hits. Like, yeah, well, if a guy never gave up hits, he'd be pretty good.
I'm gonna come up with a golf score, Gray. It's gonna be like X golf, and it's gonna be minus lost balls out of bounds, minus 3 putts,
lost bogey,
minus duff chips. Yeah. Like, we're gonna remove all the bad shots from your round, and that's gonna be what you actually shoot. And I'm gonna be on the goddamn PGA Tour, Gray.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Crochet is a fold'em. Get him off your team. Yeah, fold'em. Go.
Mackenzie Gore. He has 27 innings.
Fold him.
The new Joe Musgrave, Gray. Yeah. He's just terrible second half.
Yeah. I mean, Mackenzie Gore. So I did watch him a couple starts ago. I think like his stuff is still there. I think he gets out of like his mechanics get screwed up, and I don't know if the Nationals can fix him or if maybe like at some point he is able to get his mechanics in order for like a 6-month season, but his stuff still looks good. It's just like he's just all over the place. Anyway, yeah, fold him.
All right, one more. Max Fried.
Fold. Yeah, I mean, you gotta fold him, man. At a certain point, like I was saying with Max Fried in the beginning of the season, like I think he should have had surgery last year. He did get through a good solid 3 months where he seemed fine and healthy. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think the teams say, or the doctors even, will say to a player like, "Hey, like you can pitch through it, and you might get a good 3 months, or you might get 1 month, or you might get 6 months. You can try it, but you pitching through it isn't necessarily going to hurt your arm. So go for it if you want." And I think that's probably what happened with Max Fried after last year, because like we know he had an arm injury last year. He just rested and rehabbed, which is, it's okay, but you got to get things fixed. I'm sorry. I'm not an actual doctor, but I don't know. I was pre-med for 1 semester in college. Okay. So I'm just saying, like, Max Fried, I think, has an arm issue. I don't know if maybe at some point he has surgery. I don't know. Who knows? But I wouldn't have him on my team right now. Fold him.
Yeah, the starts since he's come back from his latest IL stint have all been really bad. The velocity's dropping. If you have the roster room that you can just hold him and wait to see if the velocity can tick back up, okay. But if you're in an RCL league and you want to pick up a streamer or you need saves more than him, absolutely no problem letting him go. He would be the one of this group that if I'm holding on, he's the one, but I don't feel good about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let's move over to the bullpen gray. Peter Fairbanks is he's going to the IL. It's kind of an annual thing with Fairbanks to head the IL at some point. It's kind of surprised it waited this long.
Biannual. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think in regards to who's taking over in Tampa Bay as the possible closer options?
I think the Tampa Bay, I think the Rays are probably going to just be a committee because they don't really they had Jason Adam, but he's gone. They don't really have anyone who's like really top to bottom, like an easy fill in here. I think they're probably, if anything, they're going to split it between Clevenger, he's a lefty though, but Clevenger, and then maybe Manuel Rodriguez, Poche might get a save or two. I think this is going to be a committee more or less. I grabbed Clevenger in our RCL league, but honestly, if he doesn't get the next save, I'm just going to drop him. It may not even be worthwhile to speculate here in shallower mixed leagues, but if you have to, if you're really desperate for saves, I say Clevenger, and then Rodriguez probably be my second choice.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think those are the top two, and then if you have to go beyond that, it's probably Poche. Even when Fairbanks was the closer, they weren't. This is the first year they've ever really let him go with that role. So I also do not expect them to just hand it to one guy. I'm sure it'll be a mix of people, so you can chase those guys if you're really chasing them down. But I think it'd be like a short day where there's not a full slate of games where you're looking at them instead of somebody else with a better option at getting a save. Over in Baltimore, have we officially moved into the Sir Anthony phase?
Yeah. Apparently, I think I said this last week that Sir Anthony, if it were April, I would say Sir Anthony Dominguez isn't going to make it to the All-Star break. But because we're at the end of August, he could make it a month. That could happen. He might be fine for, 5+ weeks. I could see that. I wouldn't, if I were thinking about like next year, I wouldn't expect Sir Anthony Dominguez to be the closer for the Orioles as of April 1st of next year. But for now, sure. Yeah, I would say Dominguez and forget the speculation on the other guys. But if I were to speculate, I would say Cano. It's funny how far Kimbrel has fallen down the list of bullpen options. He's really, I mean, he's like a 6th inning guy now.
Yeah, I mean, he actually had a strong, year up until he didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you drafted him, you got what you needed out of him, and now hopefully you're not starting him in your lineup anymore. Breaking news alert. Boop, 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 boop. Austin Riley, IL for rest of the season, Gray, fractured hand. That just sucks.
I know. I honestly, I thought, I think I put this in the roundup that like the X-rays were inconclusive, and 9 times out of 10 when X-rays are inconclusive on Sunday, that means they have to wait for the swelling to go down, and when the swelling goes down, they're going to find a fracture. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I kind of expected it. I kind of like Ramon Liriano at third base for the Braves. No, I'm joking. The Braves are like the walking wounded, man. I mean, Acuna, Albies, Riley now is like Matt. Who's on first? Matt Olson. Who's on third? Matt Olson. Who's on second? Matt Olson. Who's playing short? Matt Olson. This is incredible. He's also actually pitching. Wow. Yeah, man. I feel bad for Braves fans because they had to be at least like a top 3 favorite to go to the World Series.
I think they were the favorite, probably.
Yeah, well, the Dodgers, I would assume. But yeah. I mean, they were up there as a favorite for sure, a top 3 favorite at least. And now it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs. Like and if they do, it's like, what's their team? It's like, I don't know. Anything can happen if a team makes the playoffs. So I don't want to have a recorded snippet of me saying the Braves are terrible and then they win the World Series. But I will say they've had a really bad stretch of luck, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you told us at the beginning of the season, Marcell Ozuna is going to have like his best year ever, Chris Sale is going to throw 160 innings of sub-3 ERA ball, you would have booked the Braves for the World Series like instantly without even thinking about it. But they have just had injury after injury. So yeah. Let's move on, Greg, let's continue with the closers. Minnesota, Duran is still the closer, but the Twins always mix it up a little bit. Cole Sands has 2 saves in the second half. Is this something worth monitoring, or is this just the Twins twinning up?
Yeah, no, it's just the Twins. Duran, like that was always like people always come into the comments when like a Griffin Jacks or a Cole Sands gets a save with the Twins, but it's like the Twins have no set roles for anything. Like the only thing they really have, it's like, their starters start games. Other than that, it's like everything is just up in the air. Like lineups, platoons, who's closing. Duran is their closer, but I mean, he's only, Baldelli uses him as much for like, if the middle of the lineup is coming up in the 8th inning, Baldelli will use Duran in the 8th inning. And, I mean, obviously everyone's, they're doing fine. I mean, the Twins are not a bad team, so it's working for them. But yeah, Duran is their closer, but only, 75% of the time.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, like they've done a hell of a job with that roster and getting to as many wins as they have this year. Because you look at the roster, like, how are they winning anything? Like they're Willie Castro, Trevor Larnach, Carlos Santana, Ryan Jeffers, like Zebby Matthews and David Festa and the road. Like, how does this team win? And they just are. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think I said this last week on the site. I mean, I wrote this in one of the roundups that like their top hitters are like Ryan Jeffers has like the most homers on their team, and their top hitting, it's like everyone is like a day away from a 60-day IL stint for their entire lineup, and their top hitting is like it's just like a different guy every, like it's like Max Kepler like one week, and then it's Royce Lewis, and then it's Trevor Larnach. It's like they get production from everywhere, and it's not necessarily the best for fantasy, but for real baseball, yeah, I mean they get it done.
Yeah, it's been crazy watching them keep winning games with what they have. Good on them. The Dodgers, the opposite of the Twins. Hudson struggled second half. Kopech hasn't allowed an earned run with the Dodgers and got his first save. Are we seeing a change here?
Yeah, I think it's Kopech now. It's funny to look at because the Dodgers didn't have a closer when Kopech got traded to them. And it's not like you necessarily can say like the new guy is the closer immediately, but he has been good for a while, for like, for now it's 18 days as of Sunday. So, I mean, he has been great. So it's like it took Dave Roberts almost 3 weeks to figure out that, the closer that we are using stinks and we have a guy who's actually good. And it took 3 weeks for that thought to get through Dave Roberts's head. So, but now he's figured it out. Now he's got Kopech as the closer. So, by Wednesday, Kopech will blow 2 games and it'll be up in the air again. But
Kopech it'll go back to Evan Phillips.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but Kopech does look good. He looks like the closer as well.
Yeah, and I joke about Evan Phillips, but he's actually been completely clean in the month of August in regards to giving up runs. So, I mean, not for nothing. And if Kopech struggles, we really could just rotate this bullpen back to where it started, and Evan Phillips is back on top. But yeah, I agree. I think Kopech is the guy for now. And I mean, he has the stuff. There's no reason he can't be the closer the rest of the season. Kansas City, Lucas Erceg hasn't allowed a run since coming to Kansas City. He has 2 saves. It seems like he's going to be, or he is the closer, or he should be the closer if he's not already.
Yeah, I agree with that. We can move on.
All right, going over to Detroit, Jason Foley is back in the mix. Is he your top closer in Detroit? Because I still think they're going about it committee, but they seem to have one guy who gets like 2 out of 3 chances, which may be like, 3 chances rest of season.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the Tigers bullpen is really worth, speculating on as of like outside of like AL only. In a mixed league, I feel like your resources are better used elsewhere, unless you're like insanely desperate. Then I guess Foley, but yeah, I would look elsewhere if I could.
Yeah, Foley, Vest, and Holton all have a save within the last 2 weeks, so it's a little bit of a mess. Unless Foley, if you have to chase it, but
yeah, it's like the worst scenario because it's like they're not good and the team's not good, so it's like what are you doing?
Yeah, over in the north side of Chicago, Jorge Lopez gets his first save of the year. Neris is still there, but he's struggled all season in and out. Do you think Jorge Lopez is worth a pickup, or are you going with Neris still?
Neris still, but I honestly I would probably in most mixed leagues try to avoid. I mean, Neris has been bad all year. He's really not good. I've said this a few times. It's been a while, but like a couple months ago, I think the last time I said this. But Neris is a guy on one of my 12-team mixed leagues who's basically been parked on my bench for most of the season. Like I haven't even started him. Even when I've needed saves, it's like I just have better things to do with my team than start Neris. It's just not great. So yeah, I'd probably try to avoid, but if you're desperate, I guess Neris is the guy.
Yeah, I actually might go the other way. I might go with Jorge Lopez, even if he's not the official closer. His numbers have been really good, so you're at least not eating things that are going to kill you in other categories. But yeah, I guess if you're chasing every last save, I think it's a committee now with Neris sitting 1A. But again, I would rather have Jorge Lopez as a whole. Over in Arizona, Justin Martinez took the loss on Friday. Normally one loss isn't like the end of the world. You kind of move on, but Sewell was the closer. AJ Puck was the closer at one point. Kevin Ginkel's been in the rotation. Joe Mantiply has been good. All of those guys have been good recently. Do you think Justin Martinez is in danger? Would you go with Sewell or Puck, or is it just going to be kind of like the Twins and it's just all over the place, and we don't really know who it is?
I don't know. I think if like the last couple guys have been super iffy that we've talked about, like Searig, the Tigers, the Cubs. Justin Martinez doesn't feel that iffy to me. I feel like I'm not saying this is necessarily ranked in order of how you're presenting them, but Justin Martinez feels to me like he's good. Like he could be the closer not only this year, but also potentially next year and moving forward. Like his stuff, he's got good stuff. Like I like Justin Martinez. So I would grab him in any league, really. Maybe, in 10-team mixed leagues, it's pretty shallow. But in most leagues, Justin Martinez should be rostered. I like him.
Yeah, and I will say he's taken 2 losses he took a loss on Friday and a loss on Sunday. Both were unearned runs, so they weren't put on him. So his numbers still look clean.
Yeah.
But as a manager looking at it,
I don't know on Friday. I don't know Friday's deal because I'm sort of checked out a little bit on Friday. But Sunday, it was an extra innings game. So, one of the ghost runners scored. So it's like, whatever. Like, I don't think you can hold that against him for Sunday's game. So, yeah, I think he's fine.
Yeah. I think I'm more worried than you are. 3 walks in that period as well is not necessarily ideal. And again, everybody else in that bullpen's been great recently, which it's kind of funny because before he arrived, everybody in that bullpen was absolutely terrible, or at least before he got that job. And now everybody's like, oh, no, I want my job back. And everybody's been really great in that bullpen since then. Like Puck, Mantiply, Ginkel, and Sewell all haven't given up a run in the last 2 weeks, Gray. So that's the only reason I brought it up. And again, Martinez has the walks issue. It's not been his fault, either of those losses, but as the manager, as the coach, I just wonder, you stare at it, you watch it happen to a pitcher, does it start getting in your mind? I might go grab Sewell or Puck and start guessing if you're in that kind of league.
Yeah, that's fair. They definitely have better options than the Cubs and the Tigers for sure.
For sure. Oh yeah. I mean, the Cubs don't have a single reliever that's been good for the last month. Jorge Lopez is about as good as it's been for us. Let's move on to waivers, Gray. Before we jump in there, could Dairon Blanco just play every game in Cincinnati? Because that would be
not every game in Cincinnati, but every game in Cincinnati versus a lefty. then Dairon Blanco is Barry Bonds,
the greatest player ever.
He is Barry Bonds. Then, yeah, it's Dairon Blanco Bonds. That's it. I'm impressed with the commenters on Monday. I don't think I've gotten one Blanco comment like, should I pick him up? I think people are on to that Blanco guy. Okay, so hot bats, right? Ramon Laureano, I mentioned him earlier when I was joking about Austin Riley in third base. So Ramon Laureano has actually been like one of the few bright spots for the Braves recently, at least for the last week or two. Carlos Santana's been hot, insanely hot. He's having a nice season, and he's only rostered in 50% or less leagues. Anyway, Gavin Lux has been decent recently. David Peralta's been hot. Padres outfielder. Keibert Ruiz has actually been decent. I think he had 3 homers last week. Michael Toglia, Rockies guy, who's actually been good for like almost 7 weeks now, and people still comment whether or not they should drop him, even though he's been really good.
Can I drop this guy who's hitting for me, Gray?
Yeah, can I drop this guy who's been good? And then let's see, Gavin Sheets. Oh no, he's on the White Sox. Yeah, I wouldn't pick up a White Sox player. Kerry Carpenter's been hot since he's returned. big Christmas. John Kenzie Noel has been really good for the Guardians. He's still in a platoon, though, unfortunately. Jonathan India had a big game last week, and he's been relatively hot, more or less. Johan Rojas has actually been decent for steals over the last week. So if you need some steals, he's been good. Brendan Rodgers was good at home. I don't know if their Rockies aren't home this week, so that may not play. I mentioned him earlier. Ryan Jeffers hit couple homers this past week, has been good. JJ Bleday has been solid. And then finally, Tyler Fitzgerald now. He's rostered. Please tell me he's rostered by now. So yeah, there's some players for you.
Yeah, if Tyler Fitzgerald is still going, that league is dead. That's one of those leagues that, like, you're talking about Ohtani going in the second round for, Gray. That's one of those easy leagues, I think, for the number 4 player over the last 30 days. Streaming options, Gray. Nick Martinez at Toronto. He's been really good lately. Osvaldo Bido versus Tampa Bay. Kaider Montero at the White Sox. JP Sears versus Milwaukee. David Peterson versus Baltimore and at San Diego. Not great matchups, but Peterson himself has been really good. And both those parks are pretty solid, so not too concerned. Ryan Nelson at Miami, Jake Irvin at Atlanta, DJ Hers versus Colorado. He might actually be a 2-step this week, but I think his other one is Monday while we're recording. Kyle Hendricks versus Detroit, not a K guy, but he's been pitching really well. And Jonathan Cannon at San Francisco, if you're going a little bit deeper than those guys. If you have specific questions as we are approaching the end of the season, you can always find us on Twitter. I am at RazBeaton. Gray is the owner of the @Razzball account. You can also leave comments on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy. Like, subscribe, rate, review, whether you watch us or listen to us on whatever podcast device or application. Until next time, Greg, good luck, and I'll talk to you next week, bud.
All right, late.